Morning. And my apologies for just coming in for such an important program just today. And so I think one of the things that I may be doing, unfortunately, is repeating some things that have already been said. And I really would like to thank the organizing committee. There's a storytelling aspect of how you've arranged the topics, and that really helps in assimilating and understanding the situation on the ground. Thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute to the discussion in our small way. And so I just heard that there were some of our brothers or so from the Gambia. This particular photo was taken just over the Sirikunda. Is that the correct pronunciation? Sirikunda. Yeah, that's a fish and vegetable market in the Gambia. It's one of my favorite photos because of it looks a bit scattered, but in there is a lot of storytelling, and it has remained with me since 2023 while I was there. And so my presentation is on transparency in fisheries trade in West Africa. I'm Rebecca Essamuah, and I support research, and I'm the programs manager at the Center for Maritime Law and Security Africa, which is based here in Accra. And just a bit about the center, for which reason I have gleaned a lot of experience over the past 4 or 5 years that I've been with them. The center focuses on maritime security, as the name suggests. It focuses on ocean governance and then aspects of the blue economy. And at the center, we help to provide some legal advice, policy analysis, and also key among the things that we do is to help in implementing projects. All right, so the projects may depend on the donor, it may depend on the initiative, and we tend to draw our expertise from across the region. And I'm happy to see a few very familiar faces. Besides the Ghana team that I know, my brother from Senegal, Monsieur Paul. Thank you very much. It's good to see you here. And at the center, we also help in those initiatives that run across the region. For instance, we supported the Bloomberg Philanthropies Vibrant Oceans Initiative project that targeted transparency and accountability. It was a study-based project in 4 countries, Benin, Senegal, of course, in Ghana, and in Cote d'Ivoire. And following up to that 2-year study project, we were privileged to work with the US Embassy through the Department of State's sponsored Distant Water Fishing Vessels project. In this project, we focus on helping to improve information sharing mechanisms to help analyze the capability of our MCS and how to improve our capacity building when it came to our personnel. And it's also focused on helping to put together a blueprint for owning the industrial sector space locally and across the region. And for which reason we worked in 7 countries, the first 4 countries I mentioned, and then Sierra Leone, Cameroon, and Mauritania. So a lot of the lessons that I am going to touch on are from these experiences working with the research team on the project. And when we talk about transparency, mind you, across the region, you cannot freely use the word, especially when it comes to our administrations. So we've learned to study the setting of the country and know what word can be linked to transparency so that it doesn't appear as though you're calling someone corrupt. So basically, some of the questions that we would ask: what do you see? Can you talk about what you see? Can you talk about it freely? And when you talk about it, is it considered? So when it comes to the decision-making aspect. So in each of the countries that we've been privileged to work, we had to be careful when using the term transparency so we don't send the wrong signal across even before the conversation started. Then global fisheries trade, West Africa's fisheries trade context. Then I'll just highlight a bit on transparency in the fisheries trade in Africa, specifically in the West African region, and then I'll give a summary. So like I mentioned, during our work across the region, these are very common issues of concern, and this may have been highlighted already. The overexploitation of important fish stocks, the modifications to our ecosystem, sometimes almost to ruin, the significant economic losses that come with issues like IUU fishing, the international disagreements on management and trade. Now, the questions that I asked earlier sometimes may skew the target audience to help elicit some answers. So what do you see about our access arrangements, if you could speak about that? The fines and penalties, the cost benefit of the sanctions, and these questions keep on going on and on till we arrive at exactly what hampers or makes it difficult to be transparent in our fisheries. Now, can you talk about it? How free is the media? Is the media skewed toward certain topics because that's where the money is, or that is where the political alliance is? So what are the narratives? Are they actually the problem on the ground versus the agenda setting? So you want to see whether this particular government is focused in this, along these lines, and that is why you keep on hearing certain things, or they are the real things on the ground. And in some of our journalist training, we end up trying to help them report right without any bias. And then what are the alliances that they need, the networks that they need to help them have very impactful advocacy or campaign strategies? Now, if it is considered, is it like science informing policy? And I'm happy that Dr. Ife spoke just before me. You could just tell the element of science informing policy in several of the things she said. Is it inclusive? And then in the absence of data, we keep on saying there is a lack of data. I think it's not a lack of data, it's just inadequate, and sometimes to a point that we have so much data, but it hasn't been managed well. So even in the lack of data, is there a precautionary approach in the face of inadequate data in decision making? So I believe these have also been seen in earlier discussions, but basically I wanted us to see that in 2020 and 2024, looking at the FAO state of the world fisheries, that approximately 90% of the live aquatic products was frozen. So the opportunities for helping in packaging, adding value is still very wide. And so I needed to just put this here and to let you see that there isn't much variations when you look at the fin fish, and this is an accumulation of both marine or wild caught and then those from production like aquaculture. Still waiting for some updates of the data I needed, so there's a gap in my slide. But to tell you the percentage of this that circulates in Africa. This is more focused on the ECOWAS region, and I'm happy that Professor Bao also touched on some of the corridors. And the fact that the decrease in the consumption per capita was because of more demand, and the fact that bigger nations like Nigeria and Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire are needing more, and yet there is less. And we already know the issues around dwindling catches. And the catchphrase is that we are talking about transparency, but we know that trade means profitability. So there's that delicate balance where you want to be sure whether being profitable doesn't affect you. And so there's a Japanese proverb that I just put here for us to think through. Where there is profit, loss is hidden very close by. And this should guide us in some of the discussions that we are being prompted to do, even when we decide to do things on a regional or on a block level. This is also one of my favorite pictures, so taken in Senegal on at the fishing harbor at Imbu. How do we improve transparency in West Africa's fisheries trade? And these have been drawn from some policy level engagements that we've had in 5 countries, Cote d'Ivoire, in Cameroon, of course in Senegal, in Ghana, and in Mauritania. So these are some key things that run through the communiques that we presented to government after our discussions with high-level stakeholders. That there needed to be consistent stock assessments. We needed to find innovative ways, even in the absence of a research vessel. It was very important to know what was there, in what quantities, and we needed to be very consistent in taking information from the water. We needed to implement our management policies, not just have them beautifully in our books and on our shelves, but to implement them. I'm happy to be part of this very happy set where we've seen the fisheries law finally come into force from last night. Then enhance value chains, standards, and certification. And I'm sure some of us heard what Dr. Caitlin said in her discussions earlier, focusing on traceability and the importance of that in helping to clamp down on some things like IUU fishing. Then we needed to also make fisheries data information publicly accessible. Now, in making them publicly accessible, we have to consider the formats in which they come. It could be just a raw set of data, or it could be a data that is skewed to tell a story a certain way. But all of that has to come in our data management. We need to look at how we manage our data and make that publicly accessible. And just to say that Ghana has just started taking steps. I'm happy to be part of the multi-stakeholder group in being a FITI reporting nation. Now, we have to be accountable. That goes without saying. Then, of course, we are very good at this, and so it doesn't seem to be a priority on this list, though, but we need to continue learning lessons from each other through our regional collaborations and cooperation. Ecosystem-based management seems like a very huge thing that very ambitious, especially for researchers in the building. You know what it takes to finally arrive at that, but it's still worth considering because of the assemblages or the uniqueness of our tropical areas. We don't have a fishery that is just solely species-based. There's a mixture, so we need to understand the stocks and do that through an ecosystem-based management. And then in all of the discussions that we had, there were sentiments from particularly our brothers and sisters who use the resource. I'm happy to see Nana Jojo Solomon was here a while ago. And it's a national cake. And so it's important that every coastal or landing community benefits from it, especially when it comes to the kind of access arrangements and things that we have. They need to feel like they're a part of it, and it's not a resource being tapped into for other people. Another photo, and this one is just pointing out, I've just picked up some of the key things that came as concerns. The sanitation on our landing site. These are the first receiving points. These are the first receiving points along our landing sites and beaches. And sanitation needs to be improved to ensure that we're receiving quality fish. The points of sale. Efforts have been made to, in many of the markets, at least lift the fish above the ground. And yet we still have a lot of that. I don't want to mention where these pictures are coming from, but it's all along the West African coast. You have fish so close to the ground, and we worry about the impact on public health. Processing and storage facilities. Now that oven, it's so dark, you can imagine what it's doing to the fish that we're receiving from there. Just to compare that over time, and a lot of studies have been done on the impact of smoke on our fish. These are areas of concern. And condiments. That's also a market that is very increasingly becoming big in West Africa. These enhance our meals, but over time we realize that not much attention is being paid to that when you look at the importance of this in ensuring post-harvest losses are reduced. The health conditions of these. In West Africa, like I've seen so far and on through our visits, nothing is actually wasted. On this particular oven, you see fish that has been sorted, and toward the front part, these are the skin, the head. They are all going to be finally collected and made into a fish meal. Nothing actually goes wasted. So we really need to ensure that we are safeguarding our fishery. I think I'm missing one slide, but that slide only spoke about the sequence of receiving from docks so you get to imports and exports. And basically that's it. Thank you very much.